I do have to say the processional with everyone connecting is one of my favorite moments of the holidays. And it's sponsored by Purell. Have you ever dreamt that you would get your name written into the Guinness Book of World Records? Well, in celebration of the 70th anniversary of that book, the Guinness Book of World Records, they have publicized that there are still 70 unclaimed records that are open to anyone. So what kind of record will you break this year? You can go on their webpage, of course, after the holiday, and answer 5 simple questions, and you'll get a match with 3 potential unclaimed records in which you can make history. Not one for passing up the opportunity for fame and glory. I did take the test, and here are my chances. I could be and win and be recorded as the longest air guitar playing marathoner. I could eat the most anchovies in 1 minute. I'm not kidding. I could blow the longest tequila gadola on a shofar. And I promise not to win the longest Rosh Hashanah sermon. They say until you try it, you never know what you can do. So maybe I will. It's always possible. You may not know, but the origins of the Guinness Book of World Records were first conceived in Ireland to settle pub disputes. And we think there's controversy today. The managing director of the Guinness Brewery himself got into many arguments at his pub. What grew from a marketing concept and barroom peacekeeping tool became an iconic record book that had led thousands to be creative, imaginative, positive, to believe in themselves and strive for greatness because, as we say, anything is possible. Today, our goal, of course, is not to be written into the Guinness Book of World Records, to be uniquely and oddly legendary. Our goal is to be written into the Book of Life, Sefer HaChaim, to prove that we are truly worthy to merit another year of life. And today we pledge to be good, to be kind, and to be a mensch, to do tshuva and repent, to return, to change and become the best possible versions of ourselves. As we gather here on Rosh Hashanah, the birthday of the world, we do not solely reflect on the past year, but more importantly, we imagine the future. This isn't just a time for introspection and going through last year, but it's a time to celebrate possibilities. The shofar calls us not only to wake up, but also to dream, to focus on the possibilities before us, the ones that we see, the ones that we may miss, and the ones that we have to create ourselves. As we say, Hayom Harat Olam, on this day the world is born, and on this day new possibilities are born. Rav Kook, the first chief Ashkenazic rabbi of pre-state Palestine in the British Mandate, wrote these words: "The focus of tshuva must always be directed toward improving the future, not the past. We are commanded to choose life. Uvacharta b'chaim, choose life each and every day. Make very important choices because they determine where you're going." On Rosh Hashanah, we are not defined by what has already happened. We're defined by how we respond and what we choose to do next. And we must always choose life. We are the chosen people. We are chosen to be a light unto the nations, to always live by the highest ethical standards, to dedicate our lives to better our world. But chosenness is not a special status. Chosenness is a calling. Chosenness is not a privilege, but it's a responsibility and a challenge to live up to. And since October 7th, the number of Jews by choice, those choosing to join our people, has been overwhelming. Our conversion classes are bursting at the seams in the surge of Jewish pride and identification, and I want to thank several in this room who have chosen to join our family. God bless you. Today on Rosh Hashanah, we are more than just the chosen people, though. We are the choosing people, defined by what we choose next. According to the Rabbinic Midrash, this day in Jewish history is a time of redemption and freedom, and that is why we blow the shofar, because biblical Joseph, who was sold as a slave by his brothers and imprisoned in the Egyptian dungeon, went to sleep in his prison cell this night, Erev Rosh Hashanah, last night, when we were having brisket and tzimmus. He was in prison, cold and alone. But that night, he dreamt his famous dreams, and it was those dreams that would free him the next morning. On this day, Joseph began his release from prison. His dreams saved the Jewish people and the world from famine. Gadi Moses is an expert potato farmer. You may have heard of his name because he was the oldest Israeli hostage to be released. That was after 482 days in captivity in Gaza. At 80 years old, he was taken from his home in Kibbutz Nir Oz in the Gaza envelope on October 7th. His partner, Efrat Katz, was murdered during that attack. But in captivity, Gadi was held in isolation, moved between 10 Gazan homes, always in a room barely 2 square meters wide, always with an armed guard watching him very closely. But during each day, he walked 7 kilometers, pacing back and forth, counting the floor tiles, solving math problems in his head to stay sharp, holding imaginary conversations with those that he loved and hoped were still alive. He negotiated with his captors to watch television, and when he saw on the news demonstrations in Israel calling for the hostages' release, he said it gave him strength, saying the nation is fighting for me. Gadi didn't just survive and come home, he imagined, he believed. And now, as he says, he actually wants to return to Gaza, not in anger and revenge, but to teach those Palestinians how to farm. He wants to rebuild his kibbutz. He wants to restore life on the Gaza border. And as soon as he could, as soon as he recovered, he planted his crop of potatoes back in Israel on the border. Gadi Moses for us is a living shofar call, a blast, a call that we should believe in possibility, that even in the darkest of places, we must always choose life. Ed Levine always paid attention to ads on billboards because he spent his career in advertising. Not soon after his retirement, he was driving down the road and saw a billboard announcing Bethesda, Maryland's rescue squad was looking for more volunteers. 10 years earlier, Ed was in a bad moped crash when strangers sprang to the rescue. But now in his mid-60s, at 64 years old, Ed hoped to pay it forward. Little did he know there was no EMT legal age and limit in Maryland. He passed the EMT training course at 64 and the intense physical requirements. And though he wears hearing aids, he suffers from emphysema. Now 76 years old, Ed has been working and been on more than 3,000 emergency calls, logged more than 13,000 hours of service during his 12 years, delivering babies, calming panicked families, and saving countless lives. Ed, too, is a living shofar call, a call to give back and to believe that anything is possible as long as we step up and we show up for others. Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster had a dream. From their Glenville home just down the road, they dreamt up a superhero who could defeat Hitler and the Nazis, who could uphold our highest Jewish values and protect the vulnerable. Superman couldn't have been born without partnership. They couldn't do it alone, neither Jerry nor Joe. These two Clevelanders needed each other. They needed a partner to dream up a better world, to fight evil, to create a new future for themselves, a better future, and also for us. They created a way to inspire, imagine, and dream a better world. Superman's mission and motto for years has been truth, justice, and the American way. But DC Comics recently announced a change, a new motto, truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. We cannot alone create a better tomorrow. As we read in our Torah reading these words, Shnehem Yachdav, that only you can do it through partnership, Yachdav, together. We can't create a better tomorrow without partners. The Talmud recounts this story about two rabbis walking in Jerusalem 100 years after the destruction of the Second Temple by the Romans. These were the most learned and respected rabbis of their age, Rabban Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Yoshua, and the great Rabbi Akiva. If you've ever been to the Old City and the Davidson Plaza, just to the south of the main Kotel, the Western Wall, there you can climb these huge stones, which are like boulders, that were thrown over the walls of the temple by the conquering Romans 2,000 years ago. In fact, I was able to fly to Israel to celebrate our bar mitzvah with one of our own congregants right there this summer. It was there in the midst of the ruins of the Holy Temple, the rubble of the Jerusalem stone walls, that the rabbis cautiously approached the spot where the Holy of Holies had been, the most sacred point to which we still direct our prayers today. At that moment, they saw a fox run through that most holy spot. The first three rabbis immediately broke down in tears, weeping and sobbing like they'd never done before. As the three were breaking down, the fourth rabbi, the greatest among them, Rabbi Akiva, laughed, and he continued to laugh more and more. Stunned, his colleagues said, "How could the learned sage laugh at such a sight? Our holiest place, the Kodesh HaKodashim, where God's earthly presence dwelled, where God's light emanated throughout this world, is now in ruins, a place where animals run wild." They spoke up, "We cry because it is just as the Bible had predicted in the book of Lamentations, Eicha, which we read on Tisha B'Av, our saddest day. Those prophecies have come true. Our home is destroyed. How can one not weep at this?" But Rabbi Akiva answered them. He said, "That is exactly why I am laughing. Because before these terrible prophecies came to be, we were afraid to believe in promises of blessings. We were afraid to believe that we would have prosperity and security that we also read in the Bible. Now, since we have all these bad things happen to us, why shouldn't we doubt that the good ones won't happen too? That God will redeem us, that God will raise us up once more." And at that moment, his colleagues were comforted, and their tears were dried up. Those first set of rabbis only saw destruction. They only saw ruin. They only saw brokenness. They were hopeless. They had no hope of return. But Rabbi Akiva saw the promise that redemption would come, that there would be a better tomorrow, a better future. And he is the one who's credited with adding in the daily prayer, Geula, for redemption in our Amidah, our most core standard prayer. That regardless of how dark, of how bleak life may seem, the world may seem, that redemption, light, and better days will most certainly come to us. On Rosh Hashanah, we are not defined by what has happened. We're defined by how we respond, by what we choose to do next. We live in a time of deep polarization in Israel, in America, in our own community, and sometimes within our own families. The world wants us to pick sides, to harden our hearts to see both an us and a them. But Judaism teaches us something different. We're one people, Am Echad, or as we say in our prayers in Rosh Hashanah, Aguda Echad, one thread. We're bound together not by agreement at times, but by relationship and by history. Beneath our differences, we are one. We're bound together by unity, not always uniformity. We're not required to think alike, but we're required to care for each other and for all people everywhere. To see every Jew as part of our own family, to build bridges and not walls, because polarization undermines the bounds that unite us. It erodes respect, trust, and community. It turns dialogue into debate and debate into division. So this Rosh Hashanah, we must pledge to stand together against hate and polarization and political violence, against rising anti-Semitism and anti-Israel voices, and those that seek to divide us. We must stand with Israel at all times, and today, every day, we are here together because we are Aguda Echad Am Echad, one bound people together. The truth is that the shofar call is not a lullaby, it's a wake-up call. It says, choose life, choose a better tomorrow, choose the right way. And it's our prayer this new year that it should be a year full of hope, a year full of healing, a year full of dreaming, and a year of possibility, a year to be courageous, a year to be united, a year when all the hostages come home. Please let it be today, the same day that Joseph was freed from prison. Let them come home. And may we hear the shofar not only in our ears, but also in our hands and in our hearts. And may we answer that shofar's call with hope, with possibility, with dreams, with not just words, but also actions. Shana Tova Mituka. May it be a healthy, a happy, a sweet, and peaceful new year. Amen.